us today.
Thank you.
We always love when we can gain some of your time and all of your expertise, especially today. We'd like to focus on the pre-construction.
Okay.
Okay. I know that's kind of
Again,
your forte as well. You do enjoy keeping a lot of money in people's pockets. So what I'll do is, if you don't mind, just kind of tell people how you got started in investing in real estate, give them a little bit of background, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. See, nobody told me I had to prepare anything.
Sometimes that's better.
I started in real estate probably about 20 years ago. I bought a lot of residential rental properties. They were all resale. Found that I was putting a lot of money into them, sort of making money, sort of not making money. Initially, I was using a strategy called 10 and 10, and the plan was to pay off 10 units in 10 years, and then you'd live forever on the money, right? I found you can never get there. I think it's next to near impossible. So I shifted from that, and then I started purchasing properties at multi-res. Again, a little difficult to make it make sense from a profit perspective, at least for me. And then about 4 or 5 years ago now, I bought my first new construction property, and it was phenomenal. And since then, that's all I do. I buy, on average, 5 to 10 new construction properties a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you mainly then focus in the GTA? Is that where most of your investment properties have been, or?
What do you classify as GTA?
The Golden Horseshoe.
For me, I buy a couple of properties in Toronto, not a lot. I'm just starting to get a little more into Toronto, but for the most part, I buy Burlington, Hamilton, Oakville, Mississauga.
Okay.
Yeah, I bought a couple in Grimsby. Not that impressed, but I still buy them. Yep.
They tend to be priced pretty nicely in Grimsby, don't they?
Well, that's part of it, is you're buying based on price. But a couple of things to be really successful in new construction, you want to buy the right price, but mostly you want to buy the right deposit structure.
Right. And we have some questions for you regarding that. But maybe when we get to that one, you can kind of give some input into what a great deposit structure would look like and ones that you would recommend.
Okay.
Okay, so if you don't mind, I'm going to start firing off because we have about like 20 questions here. So I want to make sure we
shoot the questions and I'll make up some answers.
Okay, sounds good. So one person had emailed in asking, what is an average return that you expect to get from a pre-construction investment?
In this market?
Yeah, well, but let's go with post-COVID.
Post-COVID or pre-COVID? Actually, you know what? I think COVID is not going to have any impact on new construction. Short-term, it's going to have impact on everything, but long-term, it's not going to have any impact on new construction. The average return on an annual basis is around 76% return on my investment.
Okay.
Based on the last one I did. I usually shoot for somewhere between 50 and 80%.
Okay. All right, fair enough. So that going on to the next one, have you ever lost money in a pre-construction?
No, interestingly enough, not at all.
Okay.
I made some mistakes early on, but I haven't lost any money.
Okay.
Yeah.
And okay, so the next one was, what are your thoughts with builders now asking for larger deposits when it comes to the pre-construction?
Okay. So again, that was pre-COVID. Again, it's not the builders asking, it's the banks asking, right? The builders have to get a certain percentage of sold in order to get their bank financing. Typically, builders in Toronto now are looking for upwards of 25% prior to completion. Builders in Hamilton and St. Catharines, that sort of thing, are looking on average at around 15% prior to completion, which is a pretty decent percentage-wise. The difference, though, for this market and, say, the Toronto market is the time to get the property completed. Out in Hamilton, you're going to have a property completed in about 2.5 years. In Toronto, you're going to get it completed in about 5 years as an average. And that has a big impact on your return. Okay? And let me explain that to you. when you buy new construction, you get market appreciation, which we can say is 8%, but you also get built appreciation. So while the property is being built, you're going to get additional return. Okay, so if you've got 8% as your normal market appreciation, you should expect to get 15 to 20% as the property is being built every year it's being built. And that's what really magnifies your profit, right? That's based on 20%. If you're putting 15% down, you're going to get even more of a return, because that return, let's say it's a 15% market and built appreciation. If you put 20% down, it's times five, right?
Right.
So you're looking at 70% return.
Which fits into your 50 to 80%.
Yeah. If you put 15% down, you're multiplying it by about 6, right? Whereas if you get into the Toronto market and you're putting 25% down, you're multiplying it by 4, but you're going to multiply it for a longer period of time.
Right.
Right? So there is an advantage to buying the Toronto properties, because you know that they're going to appreciate for those 4 or 5 years as opposed to just the one time. For 3
Okay. Okay, which that's great, great information actually, because a lot of people think, well, that's a lot of money to, come up with all at once and just have sit there for 2 years, essentially, right?
Which is why I actually got into new construction, because it's actually less money. Right? You don't have to have as much cash. So if I went out and bought a resale property tomorrow in Hamilton, an average resale property is going to be around $500,000-$600,000. I need to come up with $120,000 cash to buy this property, put it out there, and then start making money on it. That's a lot of money. If I want to go buy a new construction property in the same market, I'm probably going to buy it for about $300,000. And first year, I might put as much as 10% down. That's 30 grand.
Right.
I can buy 4 of those properties for that.
So when it comes to the pre-construction, are you mainly focusing on condos then, or are you also dabbling into detached homes, townhomes?
I buy them all, but I can tell you that condos will give you a better return on your investment. As stupid as it is, the smaller the property, the higher rent you're going to get per square foot, and the higher return you're going to get per square foot. And again, as realtors, you know this intrinsically. When you go into a building, I'm just looking at refinancing 3 of my units in downtown Hamilton. I bought them for around $500 a square foot. The appraised value right now, according to the appraiser, for the smallest unit, which is 520 square feet, is close to $700 a square foot. Okay. The larger unit, which is 700 square feet, is only $600 a square foot.
Wow.
Right. There was a big difference in price too, but all of a sudden I'm getting that much more value, because you have to have a basic value just to get into the building. So as a result, you get a higher percentage. You'll also get a higher rent. If I'm renting them out, that smaller unit, I'm going to rent out at about $4 a square foot, whereas the larger, so around $2 grand, whereas the larger unit, I'm going to get around $2,200 for it, which brings it down to about $3.25.
Right.
So
Do you find
are the same.
there's more of a demand for larger units rather than smaller, or is it no?
It's interesting. Now that might change after COVID, right?
Right.
Because people sitting around in a 500 square foot property are starting to go, oh man, I wish I had something to do. But no, more people want smaller because they're easier and it's what they're used to. People that are moving into new construction today, by and large, are younger people, and this is where they've come from. Smaller properties. They don't want to have, a 5-piece furniture set in their living room.
Right. Big dining hutch, dining tables.
They don't want all of that. They want to have concise and clean, and they want everything to be good quality, but then they want to leave. They don't want to have a lot of work for it. Right?
Okay.
It's better.
Another question that was emailed in, What would you say would be a great investment opportunity that you've come across recently?
Anything. um,
Kind of a vague question, but
yeah, I was going to say a little bit of a vague question. There's some great properties right now in Toronto that I would be looking at buying. There's some good properties in the Hamilton market coming up. When Jackson Square goes down and those 5 towers go up, buy them.
yeah.
Buy as many units as you can. The builders out of Waterloo, they're very quick at building their units, and they're going to come in at around 550 a square foot. Buy as many as you can, because you're going to make a lot of money on those. Um, they're the ones out of Beamsville Utopia. I think it's sold out already. It was a great deal.
Yeah, was.
There's still some units up in Waterdown at Trend. Great deal. They're going to launch their third building sometime in next spring. So that means that everybody who bought it around 550 a square foot in selling them for 650 a square foot. So you just made $100 a square foot just on that, and you haven't even got the unit yet. Anything downtown cores are always good investments. Right. I would also be looking right now. I'd be looking at assignments.
Mm.
Now, there's not a lot of assignments in this market, but there's a lot of assignments in Toronto. It's a bigger market space. And the reason why I'd be looking at assignments is there's a lot of people nervous about what will happen post-COVID. So they're trying to get out early. By no means, they're making great money getting out early, right? Many of the assignments that are on the market now, you can buy a property for around $950 to $1,000 a square foot, which sounds crazy, right? You're talking $700,000 for 680 square foot property. But those people bought those units for around 600.
Right. They've still come out with a profit.
Yeah, they're perfectly happy to sell them for that. But those units 3 months ago, new construction was selling for $1,500 a square foot. And new construction has to go up. There's no choice. When we come out of this, what was selling for $1,500 a square foot will be selling for $1,600. In Hamilton, what was selling for $550 will be selling for $650 or $700. The reason for that is the municipalities have to get the money back that they've spent for the last 3 months. You know, Toronto bleeds about $20 million a day during the COVID experience. It's a wonderful experience for them, but they're losing $20 million a day. That's coming out of the taxpayers' reserve. So when we run out of that, we have to get it from someplace. So the first place they go to is they start putting more levies on the builders. So you're going to see those prices go up.
Well, that's a positive for you.
You know, if you've already bought, in my mind, don't sell. The only thing that can negatively affect the real estate market realistically is a reduction in immigration.
Right. Which at this point, we know that the well, just from dealing with some clients and things like that, that there has been a pause in some immigration right now, right?
Get over the border, so there's no immigration, right?
Yeah.
But the plan is still 400,000 people this year.
Right.
When you're planning to bring in 400,000 people and you're only building 50,000 new units, you got a shortage.
Mm.
Right? The plan for next year will be 450,000 people. And again, we're not building that many units.
Right.
When you're bringing in 450,000 people and 60 to 70% of them go to Toronto, they need a place to live. And of that 60 to 70% that go to Toronto, they push out Toronto people out to Hamilton, Burlington, Mississauga, which increases our volume of people as well. They're coming anyways. And we have to do it. It's part of the business plan for Canada. If we don't have immigration, we can't afford to pay for the schools and the hospitals and all those other wonderful things that we live with. Our lifestyle, we can't afford it.
Right.
Right? So as long as the immigration stays, we have to have appreciation. Has to happen.
Mm.
Well, that's a great point too. With the amount of, obviously, the demand that's going to be there, right, with the pre-construction. And on the other aspect, when you're investing in the pre-construction, a lot of people are going to be renting, right? Like, I don't have the exact stats on hand, but like in Europe, most people rent, right? Like, we're kind of one of the one of the countries where it's like we own our home. Our objective is to pay off our mortgage, right? Where
Yeah, there's a couple. You bring up a couple of interesting points. In most countries outside of Canada, they have something called a generational mortgage. We don't have that yet. And a generational mortgage is something that lasts for 40 years or longer. So the idea is that you buy a property and you never pay it off. So I buy the property, and when I die, my son takes over the property. He refinances it. He does all the changes he wants, and he pays it for the next 40 years. And when he dies, someone else takes it over. And that's the norm outside of Canada. We don't have that yet. We will have that soon. If we don't have it, what we'll see is a huge change in ownership within North America. I would say in Toronto, we're going to probably lose 20 to 30% of the ownership of properties currently owned by Canadians.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Right? And from a rental perspective, we're talking about 400,000 people coming. We're not talking about the amount of students coming. Right? There's close to 600,000 students coming to Canada every year looking for a place to live. We had a shortage before all these people showed up. And now we're bringing in more people. It represents, I think the number was $2.5 billion in revenue for the rental market, just for student rentals. That's huge. Right? And you're seeing rent appreciation. And it's not just new construction, it's all real estate. Whether it's resale or not, everything has to appreciate if we have that many more people coming into the country. You think basically we're bringing in a new Oakville every year. That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Okay, so on to the next one that we have here is, well, you kind of already answered it, but I'll let you maybe if you want to expand on it. It's a COVID question. So are you having any concerns with pre-construction after the COVID passes?
Actually, I think from a real estate or from an investment perspective, more people should be investing in new construction than resale now. Right? Resale now, we can imagine if I buy a resale property today, how long will it take me to find a tenant, and how long will it take me to find a profitable tenant? We've got all these rent wars. We've got all of these people potentially looking for jobs who don't have jobs. It's hard for me to buy a property and find a tenant where I'm going to make money, right? And that's what we're supposed to be doing when we buy real estate, is make money. But if I buy new construction, I'm not going to get that property for a minimum of 2 years, right? So I'm going to allow the world to settle down a little bit and to come back to some level of normalcy, and to allow the rents to start appreciating. The other advantage, of course, is with new construction, there's no rent control.
Right.
That's a big deal, right? We might have to sacrifice. I rented out one of the units I just took over in Toronto. I just took occupancy of it beginning of May. I rented it out for $2,000 a month, which to me, I thought was a steal for my tenant. It should have been getting $2,200, $2,300 a month, but right now it's what you're going to get. So I rented it out for that. Now, if that tenant stays, I'd be limited in a normal situation of only increasing it by $40 a month. Well, because there's no rent control, next year it'll be whatever the market is. And the market would have suggested it should have been $2,300 to start. Next year it should be $2,400. Right? So I'm not a victim of my unit, whereas in resale, you become a victim of the unit.
Do you find with the pre-construction, obviously now you've been doing this for, quite some time. So let's go back to one of the first pre-construction properties that you've bought.
Right.
Tenant moves out. Do you still see the gains that you would get when people are buying, say, like a resale, and then they go in, they renovate, they're able to raise the rents. Are you getting the same thing with the newer property?
That's an interesting question that you asked it that way. So when I buy a property, if I buy a property and I put a lot of work into it and renovate it and then rent it out, we always talk about how we're going to make that much more money, right? But when you really look at it, how much return are you making? So if we go back to that example, I bought a house for $500,000, the average price of a house in Hamilton.
Right.
I need to put $100,000 into it. By the time I'm ready to rent this property out, I've now put $200,000 into this property. That's a lot of money. How am I going to get a 60-70% return if I've just put 200 grand into a $600,000 property? It's going to take me a long time to get any kind of return out of this. If I'm smart, maybe I refinance it and take out a lot of money, right? So I blow up this renovation. It's a wonderful place. It's now worth $700,000 in the market. I go refinance it. I take out some money. Great. Now I've only got $120,000 invested in the property, but I've got a $700,000 property.
Right.
I've also got a $600,000 mortgage. How much money do I need to rent it for in order to get that money? I'll probably get, going forward, I pulled out a lot of my equity, but I'll probably get going forward, I've got $100,000 left in it, best case scenario, and I'm getting a 10-12% return, including my appreciation and my pay down, right? With a new construction, what I would do, same example, I'm buying a $500,000 property today, but when I close on it, it's worth $700,000. So I put $100,000 into it, and when I close on it, it's worth $700,000. So I'm going to refinance it. I'm going to take out my 100. Now I have zero into the property. I've got all my cash back into my pocket, and I've got a $700,000 property. I can move on to my next property. My return is going to be roughly the same on a month-to-month basis.
Right.
Right. That's why for me, I shifted to the new construction, because I could always get a better return, cash on cash, and I didn't have to have as much cash. And that was the biggest issue from a resale property is you buy a property for $500,000, you put 100 down, you put another $15,000-$20,000 into closing costs and such like that, you're into 120. There's no way you can renovate that reliably for less than $80,000-$100,000. And half the time you get into it and you go, oh my gosh, I need to do this. Oh, I didn't realize that. I've got to put in a new watering system because it's leaking or whatever. Now all of a sudden I'm $150,000, $200,000 into it. I've got all this money invested in one property. How long does it take me to get my money back? And for me, it's all about how fast can I get my initial investment back? Because once I've got my money back, I just got a free property sitting over here that I have no money in that's making me money.
Right.
Because in a new construction, you have no carrying costs. Sorry, hi.
Hi, good morning. Just send me 1 second. Sorry. My apologies, guys.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, we just got Nicole.
No, it's okay.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Cindy.
Where is she?
She's down here. Maybe I can hit her button here. But Cindy, can you hear me?
I was just asking, like, is it with the pre-construction because you're putting down the deposit and you have no carrying costs versus buying a resale? You have the carrying costs during the renovation. Is that why you're really liking pre-construction?
Oh, I think we got Mark on mute. 1 second, guys. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, we're gonna team behind it later.
Oh, he's back on mute.
Oh, okay. Sometimes you double click it. 1 sec. Where are we there, Mark? We gotta get this going. Get him off of mute. Unmute.
Oh.
I think we're playing it. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Okay, you go.
So Cindy, for me, it's also the risk of the renovation. You know, I bought a property. I think it's going to cost me $80,000 to renovate, but what if it's 100? What if it's 150? What if by the time I finish renovating the property, I can't get all that money out? because it hasn't appreciated enough. And that is the risk. I don't want to be in a situation where I bought this property, it should be worth $700,000. The bank only thinks it's worth $650. Now I've still got $80,000 in this property, and it's restricting my ability to go and buy the next property.
So would you say, Mark, your strategy when it comes to the pre-construction, I mean, you have 50 plus properties, right? So, I mean, is it to build the portfolio of owning that real estate, or is it, because some people, when they look at investments, it's all about cash flow. They'll buy a decrepit building that's falling apart, but they're making $4,000 a month. They don't care.
And to me, absolutely the wrong decision.
Okay, so you're basing it on portfolio and value of what you're purchasing. Is what is kind of how you go about the pre-construction. Is that it?
For me, it's all about not making money, because when I make money, when I have cash flow, I have to pay tax. Right?
Okay.
So for me, what I want to do is I want to buy that property for $300,000, close on that property, refinance the property, take out the original deposit plus the extra equity. That equity is tax-free money. Right? So now I might have 10, 15 properties, and I'm just doing that on a regular basis, pulling out the money and never actually making any income.
Okay.
Because if I make income, I pay tax. If I refinance, I pay zero tax.
Right. So that actually answers one of the questions that we had from someone that's live today is it was basically tax based. So how do you pay the least amount of taxes when purchasing a pre-construction? And that's how you go about doing that.
You only pay tax if you make money, right?
Okay.
Now, if I sell it down the road, that's different.
Right.
Right? But for me, the goal is buy the property, take out all my original deposit, take out the mark or the profit that's happened during the appreciation, take that, put it in my pocket and spend it. Or use it to buy the next property. Maybe I'll buy two. But literally, I could just refinance the property, take out the extra, put it in my pocket and buy myself a car. Because it's free money. There's no tax on it.
Okay. That's a great point. And that does answer their question. So next one we have is, well, that kind of also goes back to the immigration. Let's see, what's the minimum? So what would you say would be the minimum amount that you've seen a builder or pre-construction acquire for new build? Like, I know, pardon?
Purchase price or deposit?
No, deposit structure.
Okay. Well, it's all over the map again. There are new construction properties out there for under $100,000. And if you're putting 5% down, that's $5,000, right? That's not a bad deal. I'm going to say the average property I buy them for around $250,000, $300,000. I want to put 5% down in the first year, and then the rest in the future years. The reason for that is in that first year, I'm going to make all my deposit back and more as a return, right? The secret I've used is don't get too attached to the individual unit. Get attached to the deposit structure, right? So I'll give you a good example. If I go and I wait in that lineup at Como with Michelle so we can buy a couple of properties, right? And we buy those properties, we're waiting in a lineup, we're there for days and hours, and we finally get a property and we're wonderful and we're happy, and we're paying the 20% deposit over that period of 2 years because the builder needs it so they can get their financing, right? But after they've got those 80% of the units sold, they don't need a specific amount of deposit anymore. Right? So I've gone into builds afterwards. I bought 3 units about 6 months ago with 5% down. That's it, 5% until they close. Because the builder's already got his financing. The deposit means nothing to them. They can't spend it or anything. It's just money sitting in a trust account. So I've just gone into builders and said, hey, look, you've got some inventory units left. I know you're trying to sell them. I'll buy them, but I only want to put 5% down. Sure, great. So now I put 5% down and I'm in the same situation as you. I'm going to wait 4 years for it to be built but you put 20% down. So I'm getting 4 times as much appreciation as a return on my investment than you are.
Right.
And you waited in line.
And if they had 4 left, you could essentially say, I'll buy all 4.
And the builder's perfectly happy with that because now they don't have to worry. So I found that to be an interesting strategy. I started doing that about 2 years ago. And builders always have leftover inventory, always. Right? They have their big fanfare and everybody goes out and they buy all of the selection and all the units are picked up, but units come back or units that don't sell are still sitting there. Those are the ones I want because I can put less money in. And the least amount of money I have to give the builder, the bigger the return, right? If I put 5% down versus 20% down, I'm getting 4 times the appreciation that you would get.
Are those deals also available in the Toronto market?
Yep.
Okay.
In fact, there's probably more, right? Again, some people will go, yeah, but sometimes you're paying a little bit more for the property. Yeah, you are, but you're not really, right? Give me an example. So I bought a couple units at Liberty Town. They originally were listed at $11.50 a square foot. Blew the doors out. They sold 80%. You had to put 20% down or whatever. I came in after the fact, was able to put 10% down until close. So it's a little bit better than everybody else. And I paid $12.25. Okay. In the big picture of the world, it's nothing. Right?
Yeah.
Make an extra $75 a square foot on a property. When you put that much more money down, it's not going to return much of an increase in your return at all. So for me, I can put less down and I'm happy because now I can buy 5, 6, 7 units as opposed to 1 unit.
Yeah, that's actually a great piece of information as well.
That's the secret.
It's only for these people that are here.
Only these people.
It is on live.
VIP members. So
Yeah.
We are on Facebook Live. Right?
Guys, the right information aligned to the right people. It's not information's power. What's that?
Yeah.
It's who is the audience and who is delivering it and what are we listening to and what do we do with it. So Mark, I love, you have no idea in terms of business perspective, the data, what we look at, because folks, humans our brains don't work the way we think they work. That's why we have the right people around us.
Yeah, it's interesting. I just taught my son this, and he bought his first unit. We closed on it a little while ago, so I worked with him, and he was stymied. You know, he made 72% return year on year while it was being built. It's like, this is crazy, Dad. He was 5% down, and he's like, I just made 700% on my money in the time it was being built. Where do you do that?
Yeah.
Right? And now I get to keep it tax-free. Even better. That's better than one of these SEBA programs or what have you.
So I guess we'll kind of wrap things up a little bit. One question that came in was, do you have one pre-construction property that is a favorite?
That I like the most, you mean?
Yeah.
Not really. No. There's some developments that I think, wow, that's really cool. I'd like to live there. You know, the ones down at Liberty Tower, I think they're really neat looking condos, and I think it's a great location. And if I was 25 and looking to find myself a lot of fun, that's where I would want to live. But the reality is, it's all about who's going to make me money, because the whole thing for me for real estate is it's about funding my lifestyle. I like to sit around and do nothing and get paid for it.
Tax-free. Well, thank you so much, Mark, for joining us today. And I'm sure everyone learned a lot. I know every time I end up speaking with you or I get the privilege of listening to you, I always learn something new. So
feel free to give me a shout.
I appreciate it.
Okay. Have a great one, guys.
All right, and Nicole, I'll close off. Mark, you're welcome to stay or leave, but I just wanted to thank everybody on behalf of CC Realty for having Mark, and we're streaming still live. And I would love the opportunity to have Mark back later in June, because I think on this topic, folks, you know, a lot of people think about it differently, but there's a lot of different points that we don't always factor in. And if we're really looking to where we make the biggest ROI, return on investment, and it's really about learning, let it settle in. When people are out there making their net wealth, they're learning and applying it. So just thank you everybody for watching, and thank you so much, Nicole, for
Thank you, Michelle.
for interviewing, and just have an awesome day. Anybody want to know more about Mark Purdy, you're welcome to connect with us directly at CC Realty Group. Just put in CC Realty Group, and we're Burlington, Hamilton, and we'll get you connected directly with Mark as well. So have an awesome balance of your day.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.